today I'm going to introduce you to part one in a discussion with Wallace Gusler when I was at Martin Station this year. And this is strictly just candid, just talking back and forth to Wallace with a couple other guys, and we had a nice discussion. It was about 20 minutes, so we're going to break it down into two parts. I'm getting ready to go on a scout, so I hope you like the first part, and we'll see you at the end of it.
So you go down the valley all the way to 1755 is the Rowan courthouse, and that's 430 some miles. So there's and so the tradesmen are part of the communities that are developing, and the tradesmen end up being typically in the small towns. So I think Strasburg was laid out in 1748. The town was laid out in 48. Winchester was earlier. And it's not really totally clear when there's an Indian village. Someone asked about this. I don't know if you'll come by to see it or not. This is the oldest one that I've ever handled. I think that was clearly an 18th century piece. I published it in muzzle blasts some years back.
Are these sizes typical of a pouch, or is it typical of a pouch of a kind of a city pouch?
These are typical of a frontier.
That's small.
Light
Oh,
and simple. If you think about it, you want to be a real frontiersman, light and simple.
yeah.
And
Well, that's why I always notice these guys out here.
yeah,
They got so much shit.
big old damn pocketbooks and stuff. This one, that's a double button. It's got a horn button on the inside. And the reason you do a double button like a cufflink,
So if it gets bigger.
well, it's stronger. You can put cords back and forth. But when you stitch into leather and put a button on, the stitching itself cuts the leather up so much that you don't have much strength. So this has got a double button, and there was a stitching on the inside, a piece about this big. You can see just a little bit. I'd have to take it out and show you. Anyway, there's a horn button on the inside, and that piece of leather is now missing, covered that button, so your hand wouldn't drag it.
Yeah, get caught in something.
Yeah. And then this strap was stitched down about this far on that side. Over here, it's for a double button.
Adjustment.
Yeah, you can have an adjustment for your strap, winter, summer.
Yeah.
And so it's, you can see that hole right there, and you can see it's puckered out from being used. And then this is one piece. It goes all the way around. And then there's a single piece stitched into the sides to make a double pocket. And the one that's was in that Clash of Empires, French and Indian War exhibition in Pittsburgh. Have you seen any of that material?
I think so.
There's a catalog of it.
Yeah.
But there's a bag in there. It's almost exactly this size, 7 inches, and it's shaped like this, and it's embossed. They say it's English. It's probably New England. But it had a bullet hole that hit a guy in an attack, so it's supposed to date 1756. And it has the same structure as this. It has the same compartment. So I think this is an 18th century one. And when Henry Bouquet got the guys from Stanton in 1764 to go against Pontiac's rebellion, he came to Pennsylvania, and he wrote Andrew Lewis in Stanton and said he wanted Augusta County volunteers, and they end up leading and rear guarding the army. And then he writes the general, and he says, "The Virginians, by their light dress and activity, have impressed the savages." He knows that the Indians are most afraid of the Augusta guys. He learned that in his service in the Bouquet campaign. So, and those guys, at that same time, he writes John Harris in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was Harris's ferry, several generations of the family. He was the elder statesman of Paxitani Township. And Bouquet wrote him from Philadelphia. And of course, that summer, the Paxton boys had slaughtered all the Conestoga Indians, shot the ones in jail that the Quakers tried to protect by taking them to Langston. And so It's the most confronting letter I've ever read from the 18th century. It says, I understand that your young men are going out as wagon masters and pack horse drivers. Isn't that a job that can equally be performed by cowards? It's pretty damn strong. And he says, I've been offered volunteers from Virginia, where they have a bold militia guarding the borders. Not a man in this province has offered himself to the campaign. They have to end up drafting. And he says, I hope I never have to risk my life and career for people who refuse to fight. And so Pennsylvania is full of peace churches, people who don't believe in warfare. And then the Paxtons are Scots-Irish. So Harris writes him back, and he says, I held a town meeting, and I got one young man to join the expedition who's bearing this letter. But, okay, think about what Indians do to you if you volunteer. If they catch you and they don't like you, you're in a campaign to kill them, they probably don't like anybody in that campaign. So, days of torture and all those awful things. So it's a big thing to volunteer. Now, understand in 18th century terms, if you volunteer, you do expect to be paid. That's understood. And so,
Eventually.
yes. Well, when they came back, OK wanted to pay them, but they wouldn't take Pennsylvania money. You know why?
Wasn't worth as much.
It's worth 25% less than Virginia currency. So as soon as they walk across the line, they lose money.
The British Navy colony had its own currency.
Yeah, when that's dictated by British law. So Virginia currency is worth 25% more than Pennsylvania. So and Virginia doesn't, in Pennsylvania does not have a militia law. So I agree, all of a sudden you've got to be in the militia. Everything you carry across the line, you lose money on.
Yep.
Everything across the border. So now in merchants, they do business all the time up and down the Great Road, but they just figure out if Augusta guy gets sued by a store in Pennsylvania, which happened often, they just calculate it into Virginia currency for the whole court proceedings and so forth. The guy was X amount, and then when he pays, it's translated back the other way. So it's settled by the court. So the currency and the laws. Virginia has a hunting season, deer season. Do you know that?
No. I guess they overhunted, so they had to control some law.
It was first established in 1699.
Wow.
And the document says for fear they will, by shooting the deer when they're swollen with the young, that they will decimate the herds. They aren't interested in preservation, they're interested in economy.
Yeah.
So the College of William and Mary, 1694, their income is supplemented by the deerskin tax. So you got guys long hunters who are, somebody says, well, they took some up in North Carolina, they're dodging this tax collectors. And so, Skin House Creek, you know of that in Kentucky?
Yep.
Do you know that's a pond? Did you know? Because the Skin House is the tax collectors.
Oh.
Where you go and get your certificates.
So they have to come there,
Yeah.
go through that
And
place.
so they got so many, it was like going to a skin house where all the traders, and there was a reward for turning in people who avoided a skin house with deer skin. And in the first years, it was against the law. The way they enforced it, it was against the law to trade in red deer skins. Because that would be the breeding season. And so some poor guy hit Stanton in 1745, and he was arrested. They thought he had stolen deer skins, but he claimed he had shot them, but he had 47 red deer skins. And so the penalty is 3 times the worth of each skin. Now, somewhere in that time period they quit watching red deer skins, and they start becoming valuable. So there's part of the law that they're ignoring. But
I thought at one point, that's what they wanted, was red deer skins.
well, yeah, the
for
red deer
skin.
skin is a better quality because it's fresh growth and just not all, you know, at the end of the winter, they're a terrible skin.
Yeah.
So that's a better skin, but it was against the law to trade in it. If you killed it on your crops, that was okay. It was just selling. That's how they controlled it. It was okay to, and then by the well, certainly by the late 40s and 50s, they started amending the law to say it's on the frontiers of Virginia, where it's part of substance they can kill out of season. So you start getting that allowance being made. You know, governments are always a little slow to respond to stuff. But Israel Christian, who I've studied a lot because he's a really important person in Stanton, major Cherokee Indian trader, but he's also the deerskin commissioner, which in any modern terms would be a gross conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Gross conflict of interest. He's collecting the tax, and he's a major Cherokee trader. And so he has a big store in Stanton, and he's a Burgess twice. He represents the government. And in 1761, he's paying, part of his bill is being paid, and one of his customers is paying his bill. It's 36 shirts, and right in the middle of it says one hunting ditto. The hunting shirt, the average man's shirt is 2.5 shillings at most, 2 shillings. And know whether it's check or not. And this one is 6 shillings 9 pence.
Thicker.
One hell of a hunting shirt. Yeah, that's you know, that's the second earliest reference to hunting shirt. And he's not a long hunter. He's a wealthy guy. But he's, and
Well, I hope you found that interesting. That was the end of the first part in this discussion with Wallace. Some good information there. We talked about the economy. We talked about how much things cost. We talked about a hunting shirt. We talked about pouches, different names that were given. You should be scribbling down those names and those years and things of that nature, because it actually does give you a springboard to doing your own research when you start talking about reenacting. So we'll put up part 2 later on, and we'll go from there. So this is Brian from Snowwalker Bushcraft. Thank you for your views and your comments. Until the next one, walk the woods.